Good day, poker peeps. This is Sky with Smart Poker Study. And in this video, I'm going to use Flopzilla Pro and give you proof that tighter ranges are more profitable than wider ranges. Now, we're doing this work with Flopzilla Pro and the saved ranges that we created from yesterday's Flopzilla Pro video. If you want to watch that video, if you missed it, click the link directly up above right now. And if you want to get this free PDF for yourself, the Preflop Ranges cheat sheets, click that link in the description down below. It's a 6-page PDF. Page 2 gives you some information on how to use these cheat sheets in games to make a read on your opponents and exploit their ranges. Down below that, we've got the 2-bet ranges right here, which, like I said, we've saved within Flopzilla Pro. The 2-bet calling, the 3-bet ranges, and the 3-bet calling ranges. So we'll be using all of those today. So let me show you why I recommend tight aggressive pre-flop ranges. First off, your open raising range and their calling range. We're going to do this work, like I said, in Flopzilla Pro. Let's switch to multiplayer mode so that we can enter in a couple different ranges at a time. First off, your open raising only 10%. Let's imagine this is your early position, under the gun, middle position maybe, open raising range. For the first range right here, we'll double click it. We've got the 10% range, 134 combos, 10.1%. Let's put this up against a 10% calling range, which you saved in yesterday's Flopzilla Pro video. When we put these two ranges against each other, they're almost the same number of combos, 136 here, 134 there, but they're both 10%. If this is your range and they're calling with the same number of combos practically, you have a huge pre-flop mathematical advantage. You have 57% equity versus their 43% equity. That's a 14% equity difference. You have that 14% mathematical advantage over them pre-flop, which in the long run, like, we don't know what boards are coming, right? Random boards coming over the next million hands. But if you play a million hands against your opponent, this is your range, this is their calling range, it's going to be so tough for them to mathematically overcome that mathematical disadvantage that they have. So that's the first one, 10 versus 10, a 14% difference right there for you. What about your 10% raising versus an even wider 20% calling? We'll select this one right here, double click the 20% call, and then shebang, there's the 20%, about double the combos that you have. You have 61%, we're going to round up, 61% equity versus their 39% equity. That's a 22% gap between the two of you. You're killing it right there. They cannot overcome that in the long run against you. What about your 10 versus a 30% calling range? Your 60 versus their 40, 20% right here, but still, whoops, I apologize, I put the wrong one on it. 30% calling 2-bet. One of the key things about this is I just pitted, 30% raising versus a 10% raising. But if we just take a look at these two ranges real quick, this is your open raising range. You have the strongest hands in your range. Generally, when somebody calls you, we got to remove the strongest hands from their range because they're often going to 3-bet you. That's one of the big reasons why you have such a good equity advantage. Your 62, just rounding to their 38, that's a 24% mathematical advantage that you have against them. When I talk about pre-flop equity and you have that 24% equity advantage against them, if you got it all in pre-flop, a million hands in a row, with your 10% versus their 30%, you're going to win 62% of hands. You're taking their money. It's just they are an ATM handing you their profits in the long run. Like I said, anything can happen right now on the flop. This can come down on the flop, and they actually have 9-8 suited. It's part of their calling range. They hit 2-pair. They're cracking your pocket aces. So be it. It happens occasionally, right? Their range beats yours. But like I said, in the long run, you've got the goods against them. So let's go ahead and clear this, clear that. Let's take a look at calling as well. You should generally call tighter against your opponents. Let's imagine your opponent right here. This is your range. Your opponent is 20% 2-betting. Let's imagine they are in the cutoff. Whoops, wrong one. They are in the cutoff, open raising, this 20% range right here. You're calling over here. Let's take a look if you call nice and big at 30%. Just imagine they open in the cutoff. You're calling in the big blind right here with that 30% range. Well, now you're giving them position. Remember, in this situation, they raise in the cutoff. You're calling in the big blind. They have positional advantage over you, plus they have a range advantage, 56 versus your 44. It's not a great situation to put yourself in calling so wide. What if you called a little bit more narrow, 20% versus 20%? For you, 20% calling. Okay, not so bad. 54, it's still a little bad. You give them that position, like I said, plus the mathematical advantage. They're 54 versus your 46. Yeah, things are looking pretty good for them. But what if you call even tighter at a 10% call 2-bet range? They open 20, you call just 10. Hey, you're actually a slight mathematical favorite at 51% equity versus their 49% equity right here. Now, this is all range versus range stuff, and this is the kind of thing, I'll give you an action step in a little bit, but this is the kind of thing, especially now that you have all these ranges saved, you can just run range versus range all day long, and let's start learning, start getting an appreciation and understanding for why the equities change the way they do based on the different ranges that you choose. Now, another important thing, right? Tight is right, proof that tighter ranges are more profitable, but also, generally, when calling, you want that mathematical advantage or you want to decrease their advantage as much as possible. Choose hands at the top of their range. So once again, this is your opponent over here. Let's imagine now he's on the button, open raising a 30% range. Not super wide, but a decent range right here. This is you calling. Let's clear this. Now, as a general rule, choose hands when you call at the top of their range. Let's take a look at some pocket pairs here. Versus their 30% range. If you call with jacks, and this is a pocket pair, if we just visualize and look at their range, the jacks are right here. Yeah, they're at the top of their range. You're currently ahead of all these suited hands, all the offsuits, and all the pocket pairs 10s and below in their range. You have 68% equity versus their 32%. What a great hand to choose against a 30% open raiser. Now then, not the jacks, but what if you called instead with pocket sixes? Okay, you're still a slight equity favorite, 53 versus 47. Loving that call right here. And lastly, pocket threes. Whoops, remove the sixes. Now, this is where we actually dive now below 47%. And we can kind of figure this out just by looking at the ranges. Your pocket threes are at the bottom of all their pairs. Plus, they have all of these suited and offsuit hands with overcards. If they hit any pair on the flop, they're going to be better than your pocket threes. Now, just because your equity is low with the pocket threes, I'm not talking about strategy here, right? I'm not saying do not call with threes because you only have 47%. There's nothing strategy involved in this. Calling with threes is absolutely fine, especially if they can pay you off when you hit your set. I mean, there's strategy implications behind calling with weaker hands. I'm just asking you to look at the equity of different calling hands and start to realize, start to internalize why equity drops as much as it does or increases as much as it does. Let's look at some other hands here. King-queen suited. Well, when you have the king-queen, you've got a 50% equity versus his range. Definitely a good hand to call with out of the big blind versus a button open raiser. What about a hand at the bottom of his range? King-9 suited. Well, you were 50-50 with the king-queen. The king-9, now you are 44-56, giving him a huge equity advantage. It is suited. It is connected. There could be great reasons to play this hand at the bottom of their range, but you got to have some strategy involved. You don't want to just necessarily call with the hope of hitting something good, especially when you give them position and that mathematical advantage. What about a hand outside of their open raising range? The worst suited king they open raise is king-9. What if you call king-8? Oh man, 42%. Not that big of a drop, but it is kind of a decent drop right there, right? You probably don't want to call unless you have a great strategy reason to defend your big blind against this player. Now then, ace-queen offsuit versus 8-8, ace-8 versus 8-deuce, ace-deuce. 60.6% ace-queen, loving that. Ace-8, Ooh, it drops to sub 50. Ace deuce offsuit. Okay, 42% equity right there. Yeah, drops big time. And once again, you could just tell by looking at the two ranges, your ace deuce offsuit, all these suited hands are better. All these offsuit with a better kicker are better. All these pocket pairs are better than your hand too. Assuming the flop doesn't come with an ace, I mean, those jacks are way better than your ace deuce offsuit right now. Now let me show you one last thing. Suited versus offsuit. When you're suited, you get about a 2 to 3.5% better equity. Let's take a look at a few examples here. They still raise 30% range against you. You're thinking about calling with the ace-queen suited. Well, ace-queen suited, 62.5. Offsuit version, still good, but it's 60.6, about 1.9% difference between the two. King 9 versus King 9 off. Well, King 9, we saw this once before, 43.7, not too shabby. King 9 offsuit, 43.7 down to 40.5. That's a 3.2% difference right now. That's why I said between 2 to 3.5. Just depends on the connectedness of the two cards and the high card value of your hand that you're choosing from. 7-6 suited versus 7-6 off. Well, now we've got us 39% equity, let's say. 7-6 off, 35.6, that's a 3.4% difference. So the suited is better in general than the offsuit, and it's a good idea to know that because sometimes you might be just really tempted to call with a hand like 7-6 off or King 9 offsuit. But if you just realize how much better the King 9 suited is, you could potentially forego these hands, just fold them, and look for a better spot to call with something suited to give you that slightly better equity in the next time you are in that situation. All right, so I want you to take action. Now that you have these ranges saved, open up Flopzilla, spend 10, 20, 30 minutes just running different range versus range and range versus hand scenarios. Put yourself in a spot. Okay, I open raise in the cutoff with this 25% range. What kind of ranges do my opponents call in the various positions after I open raise in the cutoff? And then simply start running them. See what those equities are. Shake them out, right? See why, or try to figure out why equities drop or increase so much, depending on positions, depending on ranges. Also, do it for your range versus hand, or your hand versus their range again. And then do this for any hand that you review from now on. You pop open a hand. You open raise with pocket jacks. Your opponent called with 8-4 suited. Let's clear this. Let's start running those equities. Maybe this is your open raising range. Your range versus 8-4 suited, 65% equity. Awesome. But what about your specific hand as well? You had pocket jacks versus 8-4. He defended. Holy cow! You had so much equity. But that doesn't mean just because you have all that pre-flop equity that you're supposed to win the hand. Look it. He has 18% equity. Almost 1 out of 5. If you both get it in pre-flop, almost 20% of the time, he is going to win. So if you have this scenario played out 1 million times, 250,000 times, almost 250, he's actually going to win against you. I guess we can be exact because we got the percentages and 1 million hands. He's going to win 178,640 of those hands out of the million. But you're taking the other 820,000, So do this work for yourself. And if you really want to learn as much as you can from Flopzilla, get my Flopzilla Pro course, smartpokerstudy.com/Flopzilla Pro course. Almost 4 hours of video instruction, a 19-page workbook with an answer key, downloads for more studies, and 7 bonuses with another 1.25 hours of instruction.